just like these cult hoppers come out and think that like they know something. And I'm like, no, you're actually like the same pattern over and over again. And you're just like out here promoting it, which is just odd.
These people don't have to abuse every single person for them to be abusive. Okay. Just because
Exactly.
like I didn't get hurt by them or I didn't see it happen doesn't mean it's not happening. And for you to turn a blind eye to all the people saying,
Yep.
and by the system that's set up so that it doesn't actually work.
Welcome to the Dirty Mind podcast.
That's dirty. That's dirty.
There's two women, I believe, that I do not know, but have started a cult podcast, and they are in this cult that we're in. And because they came from some other cult, and because it doesn't look the same, this one, they're traumatized, obviously, from the first ones. They clearly haven't healed it. And now they're in this group, and they're literally going to put themselves out in public, like discussing about cults when they are legit in every single definition of a cult.
Yeah.
So I am just interested to follow that. And I feel angry that if your mind is dirty, then you should not be trying to brainwash people with mud and just add to their already cloudy head by trying to convince them that shit doesn't go down in there. Because if stuff comes out, and stuff has already came out, and if you're going to be ignorant to it, and you're going to put yourself out here as someone who's going to represent and make a claim that they are not hurting anybody, or nobody is being hurt there, and that it's all in someone else's head, and they're going to invite people to be in that group, I'm going to tell you right now, there is blood on your hands, and that is not alleged. That is what's happening. So choose your talking points wisely. There are people watching. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, I was just wondering how many episodes they can do before they realize that they're describing the group that they're in, because you literally can't. If you're going to actually look at this stuff, you can't not.
Or are they going to say that they're in the
similarities.
group, or are they not going to say that they're in the group? Are they going to be like, we're in a group called blank blank, which will be kind and not name them. We're in this group and we're going to talk about cults. I don't understand. I don't understand.
I think
I don't
everyone
understand.
knows
I don't understand.
I think everyone knows the group they're in, and they're not hiding that. But it's like they're saying. So what's happening is, this is interesting. Two things. One is they'll take qualities or descriptions of a cult, and then they will say, here's why we're not in a cult. And they use like this literal description. Like, for instance,
Yes.
a cult will not let you leave. And they're like, we're not locked up in a commune or in a house, so we can leave at any time. That's a literal, it's like translating the Bible literally. Like, that's a literal way to interpret not
understanding that there isn't a massive psychological factor about not being able to leave. You're only friends, the group that you were absorbed in and told to leave and isolate your family. And they don't just come out and say it. They just insinuate stuff or make jokes or whatever, and then call them a human or call them some other thing. So then they don't understand the psychological process of not being able to leave, because they never probably psychologically left the first group that they were in. So they're just like looking at this one being like, well, I was in a religious cult maybe, and you cannot leave there and blah, blah, blah. But this one is so much different. But no, this is a psychological like mind fuck. And you sure you can leave, and there's all kinds of fears around it, and there's all kinds of distorted viewpoints and perspectives on it, and no, it is not a group that is conscious, not.
And there's fear indoctrination. So yes, you can leave, but there's repercussions. They'll tell you that bad things happen to people who leave. Everything from just your life kind of becomes crappy to you would die, your family would die, like you'll get cancer.
Yeah, they straight up talk about black magic or any kind of stupid retaliation, and it's all justified in the name of consciousness, right? Because that's what like consciousness really is like, go fuck over the other people who are questioning it, or go like, yeah, like, isn't everybody included? Isn't, follow your own commandments. It just bothers me. And I didn't mean to go off topic, but what I was just kind of angry about the, people like jumping in and, fighting for this kind of stuff, right?
So
But
one
back
thing
to
that,
what you were saying about, yeah.
well, the dangerous thing is okay, there's a lot of danger, but in saying I wasn't abused by these people, that's great if it's true, which it's not,
Mhm,
but that would be great.
mhm,
That doesn't negate the fact that all these people were. So, and
mhm.
like, obviously, like, let's take it out of this group and just say, let's say you had a male friend who you thought was really charming, charismatic, and he's married and he's secretly beating his wife. Like, he hasn't beat
Mhm.
you. That doesn't mean he's not beating his wife. So these people don't have to abuse every single person for them to be abusive. Okay. Just because
Exactly.
like I didn't get hurt by them or I didn't see it happen doesn't mean it's not happening. And for you to turn a blind eye to all the people saying,
Yep.
and it's not just me, it's literally
No.
like so many people saying, I was financially destroyed by what they told me to do and by the system
Mhm.
that's set up so that it doesn't actually work. I was sexually coerced. I was made to have sex with somebody who I didn't want to because I thought they were going to heal me and they were a
Yes.
guru.
I was pursued in inappropriate ways. I fell back into addictions. I almost lost my children. You name it, it keeps going. They stole money from me. I gave this much money. It's just like, it makes me crazy because I'm just like, these cult hoppers come out and think that like they know something. And I'm like, no, you're actually like the same pattern over and over again. And you're just like out here promoting it, which is just odd.
Well, this is a big red
It just
flag.
makes me
If
mad.
you are in a group and the group is having to put a significant amount of time and energy into explaining that they're not a cult, why do
Mhm.
you think that that is?
Because they are one. And also, let me tell you this. This is really interesting to me. So when I was younger, I worked in social work and I worked with these, they were labeled severely emotionally disturbed children. They were ward of the state. They went through some crazy situations and they had to live in this facility. There was 24-hour a day, obviously, staff there. We had to sleep in if you did the night shift, which I didn't do all the way all night, but they would be sleep in the hallway and 2 to a room. You have to go through the rooms every day. There's schools in the trailer. I mean, they're locked up. There's a key around my neck. It's a very hard job. But when I was in there, I was so young. I was just fresh out of college and I was so like excited for these kids and I was going to make a difference in their future. And there was this really great social worker there, this guy Bruce, who just was so funny with them and they loved him and whatever. So Bruce, one day, I just idolized him. And so like one day we were having like one of the meetings that we need to have, and he said to me, you know that 99% of them are all going to be in prison, the prison system, right? Later. And I was so angry because like how could you not have hope for them? And I was like mad at him because he wasn't being idealistic, but he said, Lisa, you need to understand something about this system. There's a reality. So they are already institutionalized. Their food is given to them every day. They already are in the institution as children. So when they get out of here and they're out of here at 18 and they can go do their life, they don't know how to do so many of the things. So much hasn't been healed, no matter how much we've worked with them. And most of them will feel more comfortable going back to being incarcerated. They will go to jail because it's easier to be institutionalized. It's the same with the cult hoppers. Okay. They can say it's different and they love this experience because they were so oppressed when they were younger and they couldn't wear whatever. And they had to do these things and they have these things they hate. But the truth is what they're doing is going to the same unconscious thing. That's them being institutionalized again. They're comfortable with cult dynamics. And if they're not going to stop and dig deep enough to look at that and they think that they need to put it out into the media, then I think that we should bring attention to it.
Look, when you are in it, you cannot see that you are in it. So if someone is telling you that they're
Yes.
not being brainwashed, like people that are brainwashed don't know they're brainwashed. If you knew you were
I
brainwashed,
know. And if
you
you
would
were, if you were,
stop.
if you were, and if you were also convinced and scripted on what to say when people say you are brainwashed, you're probably brainwashed. But it's like you can't stop. And listen, I have been out of this group for 13 years. at least. Okay. Something like that. Okay. I am still, this is a whole nother episode, but I am still struggling. And I want to talk about it at some point, what I'm struggling with. I want to talk about what it really like has done to me, because I have had a lot of issues with it. And I've had major parts of my life that really were damaged financially, self-esteem wise. I basically couldn't go out and do anything for so long because anything that they did, I associated with it being so horrible and conniving. After a number of years, after I decided it wasn't me who was horrible, I realized how horrible they were at one point. And then I was so scared that like that would ever happen again. And then I thought all the things that I do in common with them was like was wrong and bad. Like making money was wrong. Like making money off of like anybody and having a client, like I was like, because they did so much financial abuse. I just get so touchy about it. And I get really, I'm like, if you're going to put out a podcast and if you're going to come out in media and you haven't done the amount of years that I've done to even just peel back whatever, and I'm still struggling.
But you know that the cult has actually put them up to doing this, and obviously this is a PR campaign for them. All they're doing is defending in every single episode that they're not in a cult, and I'm like, that's awesome. Like, you're missing the fucking point here. Okay, so whether it's a cult or not a cult, it's like cult schmolt, MLM, schmMLM, you know, Ponzi scheme, schmonzi scheme, whatever. But it's
I love your rhyming.
allegedly. So yeah, that's not the point. Let's look at the tactics here. And this is like what we're doing here is like the mechanisms are the same, you know, and the indoctrination is the same.
Exactly. And also, let me say this. Okay. For people who are going to go out under somebody that they are not best friends with, they don't know. You don't know what the leader is doing. You don't actually know. And I can guarantee you that you and I know more than they do about what's going on there, because otherwise, if they knew the horror that happened behind there, and that's only some of it, then they would not be in it. Okay.
I might just disagree with you for 1 second, because one of these people actually was part of, so the way that this co-leader gets his harem of women is like a whole network. She actually was aware of this one victim that came forward and is speaking out against him. She knew it was happening, and she even like said to her recently, "Hey, I'm sorry. I know what happened to you, and I'm sorry that this happened to you." Like, she's aware that he's doing this. It's that bad that she justifies it. And so whatever alleged abuse is happening still to this day, I think that they're aware of a lot of it. But the bigger issue that the reason why it's not doing what it should do, which is making you run screaming or call the police or whatever, is because the ends justify the means, and they have a fundamental lie that they're operating based on, which is that the leader or the organization is good and it is doing something great in the world and it has a higher purpose.
Okay, so let me ask you this. There's two questions about that then. First of all, well, maybe one is a statement. The first one is that now you're making me understand the thing that gets addicting is the thing that they're unaware of. So if you were in a cult before and you were in a religious, like a fundamentalist group, then your critical mind wasn't developed and you are used to taking instruction. It's very hard when you get out of those because life is hard. It's like the same thing I'm talking about with these children being institutionalized, is that they just are accustomed to not critically thinking and to be always listening to somebody is above you. So they need to keep that dynamic. That's the thing for them. If it's both of those or one of those or whatever. But, and I guess everyone has different reasons, but what you're saying is you're hitting such a good point. I just want to make it clear that what's happening is the same dynamic. They just can't see that. So, but there's something in there that is like, maybe they don't feel, because if you grew up like that, now I have sympathy for them, because if you grew up like that, you aren't aware of your critical mind not developing because it wasn't developed enough for you to have that thought. Do you see what I'm saying? So actually, maybe we'll leave all that other stuff I said in, and that was just my anger and showing my humanity at the time. But I actually now feel sympathy. Hopefully they get long enough into this episode that they can see that I feel a little bit of it. However, I will never condone doing that kind of behavior. And my question is this is the other part that is a question and not just like me going off. is if somebody needs you to speak on their behalf of their organization, and that they can't just go out and do that themselves, that you get to be like, you get to feel special because you're the one who's picked. No, actually, it's because he doesn't want to go out there and do it. And because he doesn't want to take the heat because he knows what's happened behind the scenes. And if somebody's having you do that for them, but you don't walk in his shoes, you don't know him. You don't know. You don't actually know what's happening. So if you're asked to do that for somebody and you're going to say yes, and you are going to stand by fighting for somebody who could really be doing so much damage to other people, you better think twice before before you keep going. I'm just saying, you can blame it right now on somebody. If they pulled out now, I would be like, I understand how you could like get to that point. I've been there, you've been there, but I can't accept when you're preaching stuff that is really like, you have blood on your hands. You're doing the work of some really bad people. You should be thinking about that beforehand. If you're indoctrinated, you're indoctrinated, but then you've got to peel stuff back when you're dealing with such like really big issues. These are big topics that we're talking about, and people are legitimately like having sometimes their lives completely destroyed. And sometimes people are dying, right?
Yeah.
We're having all kinds of, sometimes people are being used in ways that are not at all consented to, that I mean, we can go into the darkest of the dark. We don't even need to go there. And someday we will, but I'm just saying, people who are going to stand by it, be very careful and think very, very hard. Maybe you talk about this nonchalantly, but this is not something that you want to throw out there.
Yeah.
Because people are on to it right now.
Exactly. And just back to this one point about the ends justify the means and having a higher purpose. Like I was listening to, I think it was the lady that was in Children of God, and they teach them, what do they call it? Ethical lying or something, or I can't remember what they call it.
Yes.
Maybe it was Nexium called it ethical lie.
Nexium called it ethical. I don't even know if they called it lying, but it was like ethical something. Yeah.
Yeah, and in this Children of God, they called it something else, but it was basically they gave them all these like cartoons and children's stories growing up about how there's going to be times when you have to not tell the truth, but it's for good reason, and how they would pull out like Bible verses and say like, see, this person in the Bible like had to lie, but it was for Jesus or whatever. And so they kind of
I know someone else who did that.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Her name was Lori Vallow. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Your favorite person. Yeah.
I just wanted to say.
So they're grooming you or conditioning you to have the truth be optional, twisted, whatever, based on what it's going to be used to serve. So in the Moonies,
and it's going to be the best benefit of the best benefit of all society, the best benefit, like Scientology teaches you that, okay, get this, you have to lie, right, for them, because if you told someone the truth, we would get cancer, or we would get like, I can't hear it.
Yes.
So their lying would be conditioning people to lie because they're so evolved, also putting you in this high superiority kind of, place, right? Which vulnerable people really need sometimes. And saying, no one else can understand it because you're on OT 5 or you're on OT 6, and nobody can, if you even bring that up and told the truth about that or said that, then they would die. And then it's like on you. So how's that for like wrapping you right up into the worst situation possible? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and so in the Moonies, they would have kids like selling candy, or not like whatever age, selling candy. And they would say that it was for a charity, like they would make up a charity, but it was going back to Reverend Moon's cult. And because none of the people would work, like that was their work, was to go out and scam people to, contribute to charities that didn't exist. And they all knew that they were lying, right? And they would go door to door and tell people, was it the Moonies that did this? They would like tell people oh my God, it was a very smart scam. I think it was, so they would look up the obituaries and see who had died. And then they would go to those families' houses and say that they had received a message from that dead loved one. and that they were telling them, they got like millions of dollars from doing this. I think.
Yeah, because they're the most vulnerable people who just lost somebody.
Yeah. And so they know that
they want nothing more than to see them and hear them again. So of course they're going to hear like, oh, yes, I want a message from my passed on whatever, whoever.
Yeah. So they would come to your door and say, knock, knock, your grandfather has visited me and told me that you need to come to this ceremony or whatever, and they get them into the church, right? So they would be lying to them. They knew that they were lying. They knew that they would just look in the phone book or in the newspaper and find the person and then make up a story about this ghost or whatever. And they knew that it was a lie. They knew that the charities didn't exist. They knew, like, they were 100% cognitive and consciously aware of the lie, but they were willing to do it because they believed the ends justify the means, because that money was going to end up going to save the planet or save the whatever. And they knew that person being in, sucked in under a premise that was, deceptive, was going to ultimately be good for them. That was their belief. So it was okay. It's okay to lie, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. And it's really tricky and very annoying. Let me can I just throw in a critical question then, like a critical thinking question then? Like for people in these situations, maybe where they are fighting on behalf of someone, or they're trying to do some kind of explanation or get people to understand something, like, can I just ask why? Like if they could just ask themselves, why is he the mouthpiece for consciousness? What is it that he has done or that you've seen from him that has changed your life so drastically, or has been so, impacting of the environment or the world or whatever it is, not just stuff that he's taking credit for, but like actual tangible stuff. What has he actually done? And is this somebody who you truly think is the mouthpiece and the symbol for consciousness on this planet? This is somebody who we're going to put up in the most evolved place, somebody who comes out and attacks vulnerable people when they just want to get away from them, and slander their name when they know that that's true, and other really horrible things. This is what consciousness is. It's okay. No, it's really not okay. That's not what consciousness is. That's manipulation, and you're being played, and that's just it.
And not being played, like I started realizing, because, like, let's just look at it like a big, long con. If you even just go on YouTube and look at hypnotists, they can make a group of people that is a self-described atheist, they can turn them into true believers in like 30 minutes or less. There are tactics, and maybe we can talk about this or get someone on to talk about how they do that. But there are basically magic tricks and mental games and
they are
that you can do to make people believe that you have special powers, or, because some people would ask me and they believe this is some of that fear indoctrination and magical thinking that went on in our group. And like so many of these, I know Keith Raniere and Nexium made them believe that he could read their minds and he had these special powers and he was the smartest man on earth and whatever. And it's like a lot of it is sort of like this grapevine rumor thing. Like they don't come and tell you like, hello, my name is Keith Raniere, I'm the smartest man on earth. But they would, like, someone else that you trust would tell you, oh, did you hear that he was like Mensa, like whatever. And so you hear these whispers and it builds up this image of this person. And then they tell you something. You know how scam artists, like, they find out, it's so easy to nowadays with the internet to find out anything about anyone, and then they say it to you. And this, in the group we were in, he just had a really good network of spies, and I saw that happen. And then it started to make sense to me later, where he would go to lunch and someone would tell him something about one of the people in class, and they would go back to class, and he would, if that person asked a question, he would make a comment about that thing, that secret piece of information he had been given, and that person would be blown away that he had tapped into this, psychically. It's not psychic.
Yeah.
Not psychic.
No, he's drunk. Like, no, it's not psychic. It's drunk. You're misinterpreting what's actually happening. No, and you know what? One of the things that, because of leaving our group, I have studied, and it's just always been a fascination of mine, is like, I've just studied cults, like, and understanding how we get indoctrinated. I wanted to figure out what happened to me. I didn't have many people to talk to about it, like, hence why I'm so excited to reconnect with you. But one of the first things that I learned that I always go back to, and I always say it to myself, because it does blow me away, and it makes me feel like really also kind of even vulnerable saying it because it's so true, is the mind is so fragile. We do not understand how fragile our minds are. Now, here's the other part of it. I'm not going to keep it on that note because, like, well, let's keep it on a clean up note, which is also that our minds also are extremely resilient, right? And that you can recover, you can deprogram, you can whatever. But people need to understand our minds are fragile. We go through trauma. We go through groups. We go through relationships. We have maybe body dysmorphia. It's exactly like a person, it can be as easy as looking through a magazine, right? It can be as easy as meet someone who you want to be like, but she's actually ends up being like a narcissist, borderline personality, like crazy person. But I want to be her. She's so charismatic, blah, blah, blah. Like your mind can get tricked so easily. And the people who are doing the tricking are really, really good at what they do. So it's not that you can find all the red flags and that you can like get out of it so easily. But what you do have to understand is that our minds are fragile. And if you understand that concept and you repeat that like an affirmation and you keep that like moving through your spirit, you will be able to not hand yourself over so freely to people. So if somebody's like, oh, and they're doing, you're at this thing and they're doing we're going to do this meditation on something, or we're going to do this, whatever. No, maybe not. What is the stuff that is being fed in your mind? You're basically turning off the light and going to sleep and letting somebody who you don't even know read you a bedtime story.